Hey guys, welcome back to Conversations in Ken's Cafe. I'm Ken Somerville, your host. Today, we're going to talk about creating your own garden soil. So, yesterday we talked about prep work for your garden and removing the top layer, etc., etc. But if you're looking for more information on that, check out yesterday's video. Today, for the gardening soil itself, we want to take a variety of understandings. Hey, Hank, Silly Lily, Rory Gardner, better known as Grumpy. When you're creating a soil, and there is lots, guys, lots of different methods and ideas behind this. And you can go to a lot of different companies that are blending soil mixes. And if you're a gardener and you want to not bother with building your own stuff, just go down to your local hydroponics store, because the cannabis industry has created soil mixes that are absolutely phenomenal, focused mainly on cannabis, of course, but they can be used in all types of or for all types of plants. So when I first got into researching building a soil, I looked at organic, of course, and I found the Rev. Now, the Rev has been around for decades, and his idea was totally around the organic growing of cannabis. So, in his book that I have, and it's available on Amazon, you can get his soil mix. But one of the key factors is that he allows that soil, once he's added all of his amendments into it, to cook for at least 30 days. So basically, you're composting your soil. That allows the biology to develop to a high enough level to really interact with the biology that's growing your plant, and to be able to transfer those materials that have been broken down. Okay, so what I was doing, and this is, of course, on a smaller scale. On a larger scale, you're going to have to do larger volumes. But I took a 55-gallon drum, cut basically a window in it, right? Kept that, put a piano hitch on it, and so I could close it, made a door. But I took the cheapest soil that I could find, which was basically soil that had been run through a blast furnace. So it killed everything in that soil. It killed all the biology in it. It killed any weed seeds, etc. I would take that, and then I would add in different components. Now, you guys, this is the company that I used a lot. It's called Gaia Green. It's out of Canada. There's a lot of different companies, but basically what I want you to understand is the availability of different compounds that you can put in. So we've got glacial rock dust, worm castings, soluble seaweed extract, oyster shell flour, superfly insect frass, mineralized phosphates, alfalfa meal, gypsum, green sand, rock dust, fishbone meal, diatomaceous earth, basalt, bone meal, rock phosphate, feather meal, primal earth, blood meal. You get the idea, guys. This is, I basically bought these little 4-liter containers, and some of the stuff, like you can see where it changed from the pail to the bag, so you can buy larger quantities. but I was buying all this stuff to put into my soil as I was growing it. Okay. So we'll get off of that. That just gives you an idea of available nutrition that you can put in. And I know Andy Lopez and I talk a lot about rock dust. Those are the building blocks that are necessary. So say hi to Hunt. How's it going? The whole premise is supplying all the building blocks that are necessary for growing your plant, but as well as growing your biology. Consider that each cell in your plant is built by the biology and maintained by the biology. So a cell is built by cell division. The biology from that original cell doesn't just transfer over to the new cell. It has to stay in the old cell. So you need all the new biology that is necessary, not just to build that cell, but to maintain and run the factory situation that's inside of it. That's where all of these different components come into play. Now, you can go out and you can purchase a lot of this stuff. If you have larger acreage, I would suggest, go to your local farm stores and see what they have to offer for these components. So you can buy like 50-pound bag if you're doing, several acres or even an acre. You're going to want to get the larger volume of these materials. So yesterday when we finished off, we were at the point where if you had worked up your soil, you had, put your straw on top. Before you would put that straw on, and after you've removed, like say you started with grass and you used a rototiller to break that grass up, removed it to put into a compost, you can take these materials and add them into your soil. Okay, so say glacial rock dust and rock phosphate, the blood meals, bone meals, the green sand. You can just by hand sprinkle that out across and cover your soil surface with these materials, and then rototill it again so that it mixes in. Then put your straw on top, then allow it to sit for that 30 days so that the biology can proliferate. I can't even say it. Grow out, okay, and consume, break down all these different materials, create more and more biology, and make sure that you're keeping that at that 70% moisture. Okay. The biology needs that moisture because considering, I believe it's a protozoa and it has either 33 or 333 billion water molecules in one single protozoa. Okay. So you need to have the water necessary for these life forms to be able to grow and make more and more and more, because you're creating your workforce, you're creating the construction team for your plants, because each cell is controlled and built by the biology. So you need a vast amount of biology to be able to grow your plant that much quicker and that much healthier, because they're going to be able to create more cells and more structure for your plant. So a lot of the problems with pests, guys, and say aphids, they literally penetrate the leaf structure to be able to suck out the chlorophyll that's flowing through your plant. So if there's more levels of cells, then they can't penetrate deep enough to be able to feed. And if they can't feed, well, geez, they're going to leave. They're going to go to some other plant that isn't as healthy, doesn't have the thickness in their leaf to feed. So that's one of the ways to stop the pest problem before it ever happens, is to have the healthiest plant that you can have. And in order to do that, you need all these different building blocks. The other thing you need to understand, and it depends really a lot on your environment and what soil structure you have to start with, whether that's a heavy clay or a heavy in sand. There needs to be a balance in your soil structure of different components. So let's say you have a high sand content, you can find clay. Okay, so Leighton Morrison, when he designed the horizontal soil system, and it's mainly for indoor growers, okay, but he designed it to mimic the natural environment that Mother Nature has created. Hey, Stoned In. By doing that, and Bohemian Herb, thank you for sending that list. We'll get on to trying to track those people down here in the near future. But when you, oh, excuse me, I'm going to have to sneeze. Oh, okay, it went away. You know, you get that tickle. When you have the workforce and you have that health, okay, I was talking about Leighton's system. He designed it where he has the different levels of biology and the different environments for that biology. So he's mixed sand, silt, clay, and organic material into a middle layer in his raised bed system. Okay, and we can basically do this the same way as nature does in an indoor environment, but you can do this in your garden. So if you've got that heavy sand, you want to go and you want to find clay, and then you want to find out the volume of your garden. So let's say it's 100 by 100. Go and you dug or rototilled or tilled or whatever, say 8 inches deep. You can get a volume calculator online, put in the parameters and find out how much volume of material there is there. And you can figure out, say you want to do, and there's specific for the horizontal bed, but if you're on just using soil, if you went 25, 25, 25, 25 of sand, silt, clay, and organic material, you're going to create a balance. So if it says you need to put on, or if you have X amount of soil in your volume calculator, and it's say 1,000 pounds or however the volume works out, you find out that I need 25% clay, and you've got 100 pounds of sand. You need to put in 100 pounds of clay, 100 pounds of silt, and 100 pounds of organic material to have your mix, and then you can till that in. When you're tilling all that in, if you can have biology that you've created and spray that in, do a soil drench, okay, you're adding the building blocks necessary for building your plants and your biology, and it's going to be a long-term success because you've created a mixture that is going to sustain itself in the mid layer of your garden. Okay, Hey, same day. It's by front loading all these materials, and I tell people, I threw everything in there plus the kitchen sink. Okay. And that's basically what I did. Everything I could get my hands on, I was putting in so that I couldn't miss out. I had it all. Okay. Everything was there for the biology to break down, used to make more biology, so more workforce, and then to build the cells of the plant. It was there, readily available. And because I allowed it to compost for the 30 days and allowed the biology to go absolutely nuts with this material, and I had the cover on top, okay, you're giving the environment that's necessary. So that's that, perfect, basically a balance of what's available. So if you have a heavy clay soil, you want to put in sand, okay, and organic material, preferably compost, because the compost has already been broken down. And guys, face it, most of the places you buy compost from, the compost is not very good. So understanding that, you can still get this compost, and if you're in a city or close to a city, a lot of that you can actually get it very, very cheap or even free. Get that compost to put in as your organic layer, okay, or as your percentage of organic material. And because you're going to leave it for the 30 days, you're going to take that compost and you're going to create what you actually need. Okay. So the sand, the silt, the clay, the organic material, you want that as your mid. Okay. Then on top of that, you want organic material. Okay. So you want to put in on top, once you've mixed everything in, you can put what they call a super soil. So if you've made a separate soil, you can put that on top, or you can put a lot of compost on top. You need the organic material on top, not mixed into the soil itself, but you need that organic material on top. Now, why? So when your plant grows, it puts down its taproot, which is going to go the deepest, okay? But that's a water root and a structural root. So consider it like the foundation of the plant, or a pile under a building. It's sinking down deep to create stability for wind movement, etc., and for the overall strength. The roots that come out to the side are called feeder roots, and they generally are in the first 6 to 8 inches of your soil structure. This is where your plant is going to do most of its feeding, and therefore that's why if you're using 6 inches of compost on top, it's good compost, properly broken down, it has got a plethora of the materials necessary for the biology to build the new cells in your plant. It's got living environments for the biology that's mining that organic material. It's your housing, it's your nutrition, it's your workforce. When your army goes home after building the cell, they can go to sleep and have a good time, get up the next morning, come back, go back to work. So by having that 6 to 8 inches where your feeder roots are going to expand out, okay, you're always better off. Okay, now if you can't do that, then do what you can. So using as much mulch as you can, whether that's straw, whether that's a washed cocoa core, The compost, I would rather actually cover the compost so that it doesn't dry out. Wood chips, etc., on top to keep the moisture content in. But the more you can do, the better. So the more, I want to rephrase that, because there's the balance. And when I say the more you can do, working within a balanced structure. So say you have rock dust, don't put, if your volume of soil needs 3 pounds per 10 square feet, don't think, well, 3 pounds is good, 30 pounds will be better. That's not how it works, guys. You can overbalance in any direction. So that's why you want to maintain a balance. So building that soil up is always going to be to your benefit and your plant's benefit in creating your structures. So let's say you've done the rototilling because it's brand new, fresh. You've done, some broad forking to break up the compaction layer you created when you rototilled, because the tines are creating that compaction. You want to create this environment where you have all of the different components. Now, if you're doing lasagna, if you're doing straight wood chips, the back to Eden method, or any other method, remember that you need the organic material to be broken down. So if you're putting on straight wood chips, okay, and you're going to wait for the next season, or 5 or 6 months until that's really started to break down and is available for plants, because the biology will populate and use up all the wood chips first, to populate your wood chips first before it's going to interact with your plant. That's why you need to wait, give it time. If you're doing that way, when you're putting your wood chips down, put in a layer of the different powders that you have available. Give the biology the extra building blocks, and then do your layers. If you're doing the lasagna method, add in a layer of this stuff on each layer, okay? That way, the biology that's existing there has all the building blocks, and it's key to have these building blocks. And guys, salt has actually got a huge amount of minerals in it. We talk about C90, which has 90 different minerals in it. So you can literally put in, a sprinkling of salt on these different layers. Not a lot. We don't need a lot, because a lot of these minerals, etc., guys, it's parts per billion that is necessary in a cell. So you don't have to have a lot. But in Korean natural farming, we actually do a salt water mix. Now you can make it yourself, or if you're fortunate enough to live by an ocean where you can get the salt water, you can just get the salt water out of the ocean. But adding that actually supplies those minerals from the salt. So you can get the Baja salt, the C90. It's coming from the same basic salt flat in Baja, California. Hey, Greg. It's necessary to have these components, but not to overdo it. Thoughts on mushroom compost? Excellent. Okay. It's full of mycelium. It's full of different components. It's generally, depending on what the substrate was, a lot of them use straw. It's boiled straw. It's gotten rid of anything that could compete with the mycelium. Some of the problems with mushroom blocks, you do want to break them up, leave them out for a while, because there are gases etc., that can cause issues. So, break it up, let it dry out for a day or two, then put it in your compost so you don't have any further problems with it. Okay, sodium and chlorides are not good in your greenhouse substrates. Craig, I love you, brother, but you're wrong. Much sodium or chlorides are bad. But if you don't have those, then it's even worse. Considering, guys, in our own bodies, if you don't have salt, you don't have life. One of the first things a farmer puts out is a salt lick for their cattle so that they have sodium. So what's going on with that is the water molecules bind to the sodium and are able to pass through the cell structure and enter. Without the sodium, it can't do it. So I know that in our modern society, they're saying, no salt, no salt, no salt. Don't use iodized salt. Don't use the chemical salt. Okay. Hi, Hank. If you can get a pure sea salt, a Celtic, the C90 and the Baja salt, those are high. Like the C90 has 90 minerals in it. You need those minerals. You need that salt to be able to transfer through the water. As the water goes into the cells, you need that to be able to draw in. In Korean natural farming, we use brown sugar to draw things out, okay, to draw the water molecules out of the plant substrate so we can put it into a liquid form that we can use. To go in, you need the salt to help move that. We have been, I don't want to say, let's say misrepresentation of the benefits of a lot of things on our planet that they have said, don't do this. It's exactly what we need to do for our health. It's all about balance. It's all about not going excessive with anything that you're doing. So if you're a hydroponic grower, what you're getting in your solutions is an extreme high amount of salts. Why? Because that forces it into the cells. And then it's in excess. It's out of balance. It's causing problems where if you're using a set amount that doesn't take things out of balance, like that's why I love Korean natural farming so much. And we've actually got Chris Trump's going to be coming on with us here in a while. I can't remember the date he's booked, but we're going to talk about these things. You need that salt to be able to move those water molecules through the cell structure, but it's all about balance. So when we do build these soils, we add in all of these different components. We want to understand it's for the two purposes. It's for building more biology, which is our workforce for building everything, and it's for building our plants. So it's a balance of having enough biology to build your plant healthy, strong, and vibrant, which means more cells. More cells equals a healthier plant. If you have a healthy plant, say your inch, let's do it this way: a leaf, okay? And let's think of a leaf being, a foot. Okay, so you got a really thick leaf, but it gives you it's easier to understand that the top inch, okay, is all going to be different photovoltaic representations. So I was talking yesterday about energy frequency and vibration. Each fluctuation or um, nanometers of light waves. Okay, so you've got your far reds, your far blues, you've got your mids. Each in that inch, each layer is capturing a different waveform and wavelength to be used to create energy to give to the systems inside of all of the plant. It's like, flipping on your lights at home. You need that energy or else that light switch isn't going to work. Each frequency is going to be captured by a different layer of cell structure. So you want more layers of cell structure. Say your mid 6 inches of that foot, that leaf, is all based on creating amino acids or exudates, etc. And the bottom layer is for breathing, for through the stomata and sucking up nutrients and available things out of the air around it. So in that 1 foot, you have all these different manufacturing of different components, capturing energy, doing all of these different things. So when you're growing, or when your biology is growing the cell structure, the more biology, the more available nutrients and building blocks it has, the thicker that could go from 1 foot to 2 foot thick. Okay, because there's the availability there. And in having that availability is why we're building this soil with so much variety of all the building blocks that we can possibly get our hands on. Then letting it sit, letting it compost for that 30 days, because we'll use blood meal because that's a really good example. You put blood meal down, it's going to heat up, okay, and it can burn and damage your plant. So you don't want to just put it on raw with your plants. You need to allow the biology to populate that and break it down so that it doesn't harm your plants. That's where the composting comes in. Now, the other thing that the Rev talks about is what's called garden spikes. So you move away from your root structure, and this is when you first transplant, and you put holes in, and you put a mix of different components in these holes, okay? And then the plant, as it slowly grows out, is going to run into these. But in the outside where you've put them, the biology is already there because you've already cooked that or composted that soil. The biology creates a crust around it and it starts eating it all up. Okay. So when your roots actually get there, it's already available because the biology has already digested it. That's why fermentations are fantastic. That's why, if you can get pickles or do your own pickles, sauerkraut, it's already broken down. The material, the biology is already broken all of this stuff out of it, and it's made it easily available to your body. Salt stress is not good to go in your root zone. I agree. Okay. Salt stress is not good. That's why if you're growing hydroponically, that there's always that salt stress in your plant. Because as soon as you do a feeding, you're putting in that high salt, you're literally killing back your biology. It's overpowered your biology. And all of a sudden you have all this salt going into your plant, and then you have stress. If you're using a soil where it's already, the salt's been broken down, then you don't have that problem. And then it's a volume metric that you need to look at. That's why, in your foliar sprays, and you're putting in, that 1 mil to 1,000 mils of salt water, you're not going to get salt stress at all, okay? Because you're only putting in a very tiny amount, okay? In a hydroponic feeding, it's not a tiny amount. It's full in your jug, okay? So you can alleviate that salt stress and the overall problems that are in there by balancing it out. So I don't do hydroponic. I've done aquaponic. I've done aeroponic, that type of thing. I've never done, straight hydroponics, because I couldn't find any systems that didn't add all that stuff. And then I didn't want to buy water. Okay. I would rather buy the powders and mix it myself. But that's a whole nother story, guys. For the soil, as long as you're allowing that to break down for that 30 days, okay, you're never going to have these problems as long as you keep it in balance. That's where, when you're putting in your materials in there, you want to have the balance. You want to figure out, how much do I need? Now, yesterday we mentioned soil testing. Now you have a square plot. You want to take at least 5 different samples, mix them together so you have an overall view of your garden. Send it in, but a lot of these soil tests are only going to give you some basics. If you're doing your job right and you're adding in everything, okay, a huge mix, and the biology is allowed to go through that, break it down, it's going to not be overwhelmed with any one thing to throw it out of balance. You're going to have a much greater volume of biology, so that when you plant your plant in your garden, all of a sudden it has the different components that are necessary. It's going to have it where it doesn't have to wait for that to be broken down. It's already been broken down by the biology that exists in your soil structure that you have just built and composted. And then through the growing season, you can use foliar sprays. So why would you build this soil and then use foliar sprays? Because a lot of it is called ATP. It's your energy cycle within your plant. So it's like anything in life. If I supply enough energy, then I don't have to produce that energy. So the sun in your greenhouse supplies energy and heat in the wintertime, if the sun's shining, of course, that you don't have to supplement energy to keep that greenhouse warm. So it's the same with the foliar feeding. You're supplying that energy that's already been broken down in your foliar spray to a level of particle size that's easy to get into the plant. And then the plant doesn't have to expend energy to move that. So say, you're using a fermented plant juice in your mix, and you're putting in a little bit of salt water and some fish amino acids, and all the different methodologies or available substances. So say through Korean natural farming, you're doing up this mix and you're spraying it on. It's coming with biology. In Korean natural farming, it's all organic, natural. You're breaking all this stuff out of the material using the biology. So consider that the biology that breaks down that, say, calcium is also the biology that can use that calcium in your plants. So you're spraying components in your foliar spray, you're spraying biology. It's at a particle size that's easily available to get into the cells. That's why you're putting in that little bit of salt water, because then it's carrying that through the molecules through and into the cell structure. And your plant doesn't have to put out energy to move it up through the soil and through the plant itself. It's at the leaf already. And it's just, oh, well, hey, the grocery store's next door. I'll just grab it here instead of having to go an hour drive to the city. Basically, you can look at it in that way. So we've built this beautiful soil structure, whether you've done a methodology where you haven't touched the underlying soil you just built up, or you have touched it. You're only touching it the once, okay, to create this. You have this, you want to maintain it. So how are you going to maintain it? That's one of the beauties of the mulch, okay? If you can get organic straw, you can get the wood chips, etc. You're going to be putting layers on top. You're going to be creating compost, etc., to be putting on top, especially at the end of the season, okay? So that you're maintaining that organic material. This is what Mother Nature does in fall. Those leaves fall down and they coat the forest floor. That's what you want to do at the end of your season, okay? And then you want to allow that to break down. So in Canada, it's pretty easy because at the end of the season, we get all that white stuff, and I actually have a blizzard going on outside right now that coats all that and allows it to sit there. And guys, if you don't know, the ground in a forest, if you went in the middle of winter, whether it was minus 40 degrees, and you moved that mulch out of the way, those leaves out of the way, it's not frozen. The biology is still working down there. It's working on breaking down those leaves, etc., that have fallen, that compost that has fallen off the trees. It's working on breaking that down already right through the winter. If you're in zones where you don't have winter, you don't have those freezes, okay, then you're a step ahead of the rest of us in the northern latitudes and the far southern latitudes that do get winter. Well, I guess there's nothing really in the south. Some of the high mountains in the southern region are going to get it, but unless you go to Antarctica, I'm not going there to grow. But having the understanding that biology just keeps working. So if you're in an area where it's what cool to see here, just allow that ground to sit for a little while, keep adding that organic on top. And if you're able to do 2 crops or 3 crops, depending on what you're growing, you want to keep adding organic material and then allowing it to be digested by the biology, broken down, and moved into your soil structure. So that's where, if you have the availability to do foliar sprays, and say you're a farmer with 1,000 acres, you have a sprayer, you can go out and spray a foliar for your crop, but then after you harvest your crop, go out, spray biology again. Okay, that is going to help speed up the breakdown of what you've left in your field to the organic material, the roots that are already existing in your field underground. That biology is going to go down and it's going to accelerate the breakdown of those roots. So if you have the availability, and this is something that all farmers used to do, was spread manure over their field. That's the organic material. That's the biology that comes from the cows. And Andy was saying it last night. The more variety of manures, the better, because each manure has a different biology, because each animal's gut has different biologies in it. So you get a much broader range, especially, guys, if you have a field where, say, you're a cattle farmer. If you're spraying a foliar in your field where your cattle are grazing and promoting the different available nutrients, then the animals taking in those nutrients, their manure has those nutrients, their bodies, when we eat them, have them, but that manure then is at another level. You're composting that. And if you can take that, like I know a lot of farmers, they have ponds, etc., for urine, for manure, and they can take that and they can use that as a spray, as long as it's been digested by the biology. You're getting all these different components and biology. And guys, understanding that natural biology, not created in a lab, is a lot more vibrant, healthy, and strong than anything that you're going to get out of a lab. Because in the lab, it's perfect conditions. Okay, it's living the life of the perfect environment, the perfect temperature, the perfect everything, getting thrown out into an environment like in Canada here. It ain't perfect, okay? That biology isn't going to last. But a biology that you've developed in your environment that's come about naturally is much stronger, is going to last in your environment, and it's going to be able to proliferate. So if you're spraying on different types of biology and that particular biology isn't necessary on your plant or in your soil structure, it becomes a food source. Okay, because biology it's a jungle in there, because everybody's eating everybody, and it just becomes a food source. But anything that was missing in your soil structure, when you spray this on, is going to go, oh, hey, I'm here now, and here's the perfect spot for me in this soil structure, for me and my relatives to go, yeah, baby, let's do this. So you can just add the sprays. The more you do can be better, but the less can be more as well. You don't want to throw things out of balance. It's all about balance with Mother Nature. She loves things to be running smooth and easy, everybody in their right environment. So, your anaerobic biology, your aerobic biology, that transitional biology, she wants all of it there. She wants the system to be working the way it's supposed to work. And that's what this whole program was about, is trying to get you guys to understand the balance of putting all this in and making all these things available to the workforce that builds your plant. And that workforce, of course, is the biology, because it's the biology in control of the cells. So the biology looks at a cell, reads its genetic code, and it's going to build that cell. Now, if in that genetic code it needs, say, boron, and it doesn't have boron, can it build that cell absolutely healthy? No. You have a problem. What happens, and I'm going to talk a little bit about quorum sensing. Quorum sensing basically is the biology creating an environment where enough of them get together that they can look through all the different genetic codes. And Dr. James White talks about horizontal gene transfer, and this is what it really boils down to, is the biology gets together, looks at all these genetic codes that are stored in their makeup, and goes, okay, this is the biology that can mine boron out of this substrate. So in quorum sensing, it can literally get together, take that genetic code, construct that biology that's missing out of your environment. But it takes time, and biology only moves 1 inch a year. So you're better off to have biology everywhere and more quorum sensing everywhere happening, so that things that are missing, both biologically and in availability for your plants and for the other biology, to be there. That's where sand is full of different components. The salt is full of different components, necessary components for health and a vibrant life for your plant and for yourself. So one of the main things with quorum sensing, and if you pulled up a plant and you've seen that, beautiful aggregation, that's where your quorum sensing is happening, because that's where the community has come together. That's where the less you disturb your soil and break up those, the healthier your soil is, because those communities are formed. That's one of the reasons I recommend people, if you can, make biochar. Okay. I know we've had Kelpie Wilson on. We've had the gentleman, oh geez, I can't remember his name, but it's Blue Sky Biochar. You can buy biochar that's already activated. And guys, to activate biochar, it's just charcoal until you add the biology, then it becomes biochar. Okay, so if you want to make your own and you have the available space, you can literally take a shovel, dig a conical pit, so one that comes down like this, because in pyrolysis, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, you want to eliminate the oxygen at the bottom. That's why the conical is better. And then you start your firing the bottom, and you just slowly add up. When you start to see a little bit of white ash, you want to add more, because you don't want the ash. You want it to just char, and it needs to remove the oxygen. But you can make your own very simply. And there's a lot of different methods. There's the top load updraft, T-LUDs. There is all kinds of different methods that you can use. And I know that there's lots of things you can buy as well. You can buy them pre-made. You can make it in a fireplace. But you can do your own research. I've cut a 45-gallon drum, put a big, hole in it, I guess you would say, loaded firewood in there and done a burn and then soak it down. And one of the things I learned a couple of weeks ago when we had Mr. Vila on Quadamoc about putting in uh, a spray that actually puts a coating on the char itself, which is allowing for better energy conversion and for a lot of different things. But you can watch that video. He was on The Soil Matters with Leighton Morrison. But this stuff is all key. So considering your biochar, you make it yourself, you put it in a compost pile for 30 days to allow the biology to fill it up. Because if you put it in just in the straight soil, biology is going to go, oh, hey, I'm going to go move over here. It's not going to help you grow your plants because the biology is focused over here instead of over here. That's where the composting comes in, so important. But if you have, say, a square inch of biochar, a little hunk, that is a safety zone for your biology. Because basic guys, when a worm comes through an aggregate, it can just dig right on through nonstop. It hits that hunk of biochar. It can't take it in. So your biology is safe there. You know, if you're living in an aggregate and a worm comes through, think of King Kong coming through, or any of these big monsters in stories coming through and destroying your city. That's what happens when a worm goes through an aggregate. That's where the biochar is a safety zone in a lot of ways for the biology to live and proliferate and form this quorum sensing. So if you have this, hey, Tackmaster, if you have this in your soil structure, excuse me, you're much better off than someone that does not have it. Okay? So you can make this stuff yourself. Look up Korean natural farming, the different things that you can create yourself out of things in your environment. You don't have to go too far. You can make just small batches of this stuff. It's easy to make water-soluble calcium, to make lactic acid bacteria. It's easy to do this. Once you know it and you've done it once, it's just easy to do it. And you can take things like the water-soluble calcium, guys. We had when we had the vid, we had supply shortages. My friends couldn't get oyster shells for their chickens. I told them, just make the water-soluble calcium, put it in their water. They're going to get the calcium, and all of a sudden their eggs that were soft were all of a sudden hard and thick shelled again. It's the making it available, and being it was in a water-soluble form, the particle size was much easier to get into the cells. Hey, Ghetto Hippie, for the chickens and the eggs to be that much healthier. And it's the same with our bodies. And there's all these available things that you can do. That's where we were talking with soaking your soil when you built your soil and giving it that 30 days, keeping that moisture content out. Use these types of things to keep that 70% moisture content in your soil. You're adding the components, you're adding the biology that works with the components. So guys, we're pretty much at the hour, and there's so much more that is available out there for you guys to research. I've given you a basic overall understanding. We've got a lot of people coming on. If you're into the Korean natural farming, look up Chris Trump. We're going to have him on the show here in a while. Tomorrow we have Tyler from Grassroots Fabric Pots on. That's going to be a very interesting show because they have fabric pots that have no bottom. Why would they have no bottom? Tomorrow you're going to find out how amazing it can be to not have that bottom in that pot. Oh my, I got an alarm going off. There we go. Then we've got Claude Roberts on Saturday, an IPM specialist. We're going to look at more of that stuff. Hey, same day. Then we've got Case Gilmore coming on Sunday. We've got the, I want to say Viking Gardener. I can't, it's not there, but a fantastic gardener. Gardening Like a Viking, I think is the name of his channel. He's coming on Monday. We've got a lot more shows coming up, guys. So please, if you can, help support the channel, share out this content. If you can, join as a community member, become a defender of the biology. It's $4.99 Canadian per month, but it really does help the channel, helps us promote and keep things going. So guys, have a fantastic day. We will see you guys tomorrow, same time, same bat channel, as they say, with Tyler from Grassroots Fabric Pots. Peace, everybody.